CBS News app.
We are so excited, we just can't hide it.
CBS mornings are, well, everything your morning should be.
Let's do it!
Let's go!
CBS mornings, starting at 7.
I have concluded that it is in the public interest to appoint a special counsel.
Smith will be responsible for assessing whether any charges against Mr. Trump or anyone else come from the ongoing investigations.
Why do the Democrats hate Herschel so much? Because he's a black man who's a conservative who has the courage to speak out.
Nationwide abortion ban, he says, no exceptions, which is a rather curious position for him to take.
The 2022 general election in Arizona was botched and broken beyond repair.
So at the end of the day, I'm here as the governor-elect, and we ran a good campaign.
Welcome to Red and Blue. I'm Scott McFarland, coming to you from our Washington, D.C. bureau. We thank you for joining us. And we have some breaking news on the Justice Department's ongoing investigation into the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. CBS News can confirm the Department of Justice is now seeking to question former Vice President Mike Pence. For more on this and all today's political news, we bring in my colleagues Weijia Jiang and Finn Gomez. Weijia is CBS News senior White House correspondent and is on Nantucket Island traveling with President Biden. Finn Gomez, our political director, is joining us here on set. Finn, let's start with the breaking news. What more do we know about this?
Yeah, as you said, Scott, CBS News can confirm that the Department of Justice has reached out to speak with former Vice President Mike Pence in the department's ongoing investigation into the events surrounding January 6th and efforts by the former president, President Donald Trump, and his allies to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. The former vice president has received the request, we have learned, and is reviewing it. According to sources familiar with the matter, the Department of Justice has declined to comment to CBS News, and as well as a spokesman for Mike Pence has also declined to comment. And as you mentioned, this comes on the heels of Attorney General Merrick Garland announcing the special counsel, Jack Smith, to oversee this investigation. So they're moving kind of quickly here.
It's a new chapter in what's already an unparalleled investigation in American history, clearly a growing investigation.
Sure.
Oh, it's almost 2 years old now, January 6th. This is not happening in a vacuum, though. If there's interest in Mike Pence to testify or speak to investigators, it's happening as he's preparing his political future and has written the book, released the book, and been somewhat indicative of a future candidate. What's he doing in the meantime to get the political path ahead moving?
Yeah, Scott. So, with an eye on his potential 2024 bid, the former vice president, is starting to assemble a larger team looking at his political operation, which includes a new communications director that's coming in, as well as some other ads he's going to have later in the year. He's also added he's actually solidified three of the main parts of his team, three of the main leaders in his team, including Mark Short, Devin O'Malley, and Chip Saltzman, all veteran campaign operatives. And he's also going to be visiting New Hampshire soon by the end of the year, I've been told.
Yeah, some pretty big steps. He's been intimating a run is ahead, but those are steps in that direction. Let's bring in Weijia now as we look at the other big story of the day today, another mass shooting and another response from the Biden administration to another mass shooting. Weijia, what's the reaction?
Well, President Biden, as you mentioned earlier, Scott, is here for the Thanksgiving holiday, but we know that he spoke on the phone with Governor Youngkin of Virginia today and offered any support and federal assistance that his state might need. We also know that the president released a statement pointing out that his administration was able to He was able to sign what he called the most significant gun reform in a generation, but said that is not nearly enough. We must take greater action. Of course, that included expanded background checks. It also put firmer restrictions on who could purchase guns. But the president has long called for a ban on assault weapons. And the president also said that he was grateful to the first responders who mobilized to assist. And again, reiterating his offer of support in any way that he can. But Scott, the president just spoke about this after another shooting in Colorado. He just had another call to ban assault weapons. But you know very well, covering Capitol Hill, that there's only so much he can do with executive action. So I think there has been mounting frustration, especially every time a shooting happens, that, he can't do more, that Congress can't do more, and now Republicans are about to take over the House. So it is a pretty, pessimistic view of whether or not they'll be able to pass any legislation for gun reform.
And here we are, the lame duck Congress and a long holiday weekend in which Congress is going to be completely idle. Does the president have any plans to speak over this long weekend from Massachusetts or otherwise?
So far, it's not on his schedule, but, I was here last year as well. I can tell you that he often speaks off the cuff, as you know. We expect that he will participate in the tree lighting here in Nantucket and downtown, as he has done for so many years. He will probably do a little bit of shopping, and I think that, the president is usually very chatty in a more relaxed setting like this, so he could speak, especially in light of this second major shooting within a week. So even though no formal remarks are planned, I would not be surprised that we do hear from President Biden at some point this long weekend.
In the meantime, the president is featured in the latest campaign ad in Georgia, where the runoff election is just 2 weeks away. Let's take a look at the latest spot ahead of that runoff.
What in the next 2 years do you intend to do differently?
Nothing. I'm not going to change anything in any fundamental way.
Families are struggling because of Biden's inflation, and Washington won't change unless we make them. Georgia's doing better than the rest of the country because we stood up for hardworking families. Herschel Walker will vote for Georgia, not be another rubber stamp for Joe Biden. That's why I'm backing Herschel, and I hope you'll join me in voting for him, too.
Senate Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
So it's a new ad, but it has the echoes of what we heard before the initial election, November 8th. Is there a different course that's being plotted by these candidates, or is it all the same thing again?
Well, a little background on Kemp, though, Scott. Kemp and Walker did not campaign much at all during the main part of the campaign leading up to November 8th. I spoke to a couple of Republican strategists in Georgia who told me that the reason that Kemp is so important right now to do something like this is because Walker needs moderate Republicans. He needs soft partisans or independent voters this time around. Kemp is not on the ballot this time. He was before. So those coattails that he had, he did well in defeating Stacey Abrams, and won in November 8th. So that's what's important here. This is a crucially important election, even though the Senate balance has been decided, because it would help Democrats in navigating legislation through the Hill, as you know, also with committee assignments, as well as just basically giving them a leg up over obstacles like Joe Manchin, if you will, as you know. So I think it's something, and Republicans are spending a lot of money. They're both spending a lot of money there. It's a very important race for both sides. We'll see what happens.
Let me bring one more political question to Ouija in Nantucket. It's the holiday season. We're all thinking about the future and what's next for us. The Biden administration talking at all about his political future, as so many here in Washington wait to hear any word about what he plans ahead?
Well, this is a really important trip, a very important week for President Biden because he spends it with his family. The same thing goes for Christmas, and we do anticipate that he will be having those tough conversations with family members, especially with the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, about whether he should run again. Of course, publicly, the White House and the president himself have signaled that that is his every intention, that he certainly plans to run, but, there is no reelect campaign that has been launched yet. So we're not getting any sort of timeline. We're not really getting a lot of nuggets about where the president is in this thought process. But certainly we know that the midterm results play a big factor in, how well he sees his party and his performance. And so I think that, publicly, again, all signs point to yes, but the next few weeks will be very telling, Scott. And the president himself has said that he will probably make a decision sometime early next year. So we're all waiting along with you.
Weijia Zhang on the road for us this holiday week. Thank you for that. And Finn Gomez, thanks for your help as well. Appreciate you. Coming up, Attorney General Merrick Garland just recently appointed a special counsel to oversee those multiple investigations into former President Trump. We will discuss what that means with a former federal prosecutor who was just elected to Congress. That's next. You're streaming Red and Blue, reporting across the political divide.
An original CBS Reports documentary.
Yoga and wellness has become a place of anti-science.
Online clickbait.
The algorithms feed you content based upon your own fantasy.
Potentially at my peril.
There's no question about it.
Spreading digital disinformation.
Their entire yoga studio and spiritual community got so embedded in all of the QAnon stuff that it became this sick place.
Why pro-health people are fertile ground for anti-science messages.
We can just go into the whole mask thing. A lot of us just believe that's symbolism for silencing people.
People are locked in this mindset. They've been taught to accept what the medical doctors say.
No longer are you going to be willing to take any medical advice.
It's a big problem that we urgently need to address.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. An original CBS Reports documentary.
We need to put an end to this territorial status.
Will statehood create a better Puerto Rico?
So that we have the same quality of life that you see in the States.
What do you worry about?
Me living here in the future.
They're giving incentives to non-Puerto Ricans to come to Puerto Rico
and extract our natural resources and take over our land.
Vacation in Puerto Rico, and in exchange for that, you don't pay taxes.
Why would I allow somebody who abused me for 123 years to then consume me?
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. When weather turns extreme.
States from the plains to the northeast are bracing for more than 2 feet of heavy snow.
Every second counts.
This is a monster winter storm.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
There's a wrinkle in the forecast, the accumulating ice.
You'll have time to get prepared.
Take precautions before you head out.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We are so excited, we just can't hide it.
CBS mornings are, well, everything your morning should be.
Let's do it!
Let's go!
CBS Mornings, starting at 7.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
I've been waiting patiently for something like this.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream on the free CBS News app Tuesday mornings.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Scott McFarland. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland's Friday appointment of Jack Smith as special counsel to look into various cases involving former President Trump continues to reverberate. Smith will oversee the investigation into documents taken from the White House to Trump's Mar-a-Lago home seized in August, as well as probes into efforts to obstruct the transfer of presidential power in the 2020 election. For more on this, Maryland Congressman-elect and former federal prosecutor Glenn Ivey joins us now from Maryland. Mr. Ivey, congratulations, first of all. I know it's busy getting ready for Congress, so thanks for giving us some time.
Thank
what
you.
is your take on this special counsel announcement? You have some skin in the game. You have worked for the federal prosecutor's office. You worked for the Senate Whitewater Committee, looking at issues of this sort. What do you take on this?
Well, I thought the appointment of the special counsel made sense. I thought it was the right way to go. I know there was some disagreement about it, but given the fact that President Biden is likely to run against former President Trump, it does look like a conflict because the Attorney General reports directly to the president. So going with the special counsel, I thought made a lot of sense, and try and limit or at least insulate the investigation from political pushback, at least to some extent.
Before you served, or before you were elected to Congress, you served, among other things, as a local prosecutor in Prince George's County, Maryland, as a federal prosecutor in the U.S. District Courts. Give a sense of how slow federal investigations go, because a lot of folks are asking, well, when does this chicken come to roost? Or when does this pop? It could be a matter, I suppose, of months or years.
Yeah, these tend to take a while. I mean, some of the special prosecutor investigations have taken years. In some instances, administrations have been over before the investigations were completely wrapped up. I don't expect that to happen here. I think there's a sense of urgency in this one, in part because of the upcoming election, especially if Biden and Trump square off in 2024. I think there'll be a lot of pressure to try and resolve it before then, one way or the other. And I think there's also a big head start. The January 6th committee, I think, did an outstanding job of investigating a lot of this, and I believe has made some of the information available to the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice has been at this for, I think, at least a year plus as well on their own. So even though you've got a new special counsel coming in, I think he'll just take most of the investigators and prosecutors who've been working the case before, so he can continue moving at relatively full speed.
What's interesting to me in this particular context is that the January 6th committee has sought out interviews and gotten a lot of interviews, but also got rebuffed a few times. Can, say, a Mike Pence or another Trump world figure say no if the Department of Justice comes knocking, or is that going to be an open question?
Yeah, I think that's less likely to happen. There have been challenges, certainly by Mr. Trump and others in his circle, to congressional subpoenas. Congressional subpoenas, arguably, are limited to having some sort of legislative purpose. But as we just saw, I believe it was yesterday, the Supreme Court declined to quash a subpoena that had been directed at Mr. Trump for his tax records. And I think that's especially going to be true in a criminal investigation by the Department of Justice. The grounds that they've raised before, executive privilege and that sort of thing, I think will be non-starters if they try and assert that again.
I find it interesting when you note that the 2024 election may be something of a soft deadline to get this thing done. Is that really something they consider, that they want to steer clear of that and get things done first versus after?
Well, they may be first or maybe after, but generally speaking, the Department of Justice tries not to have criminal prosecutions interrupt or be in the middle of an election. So, certainly by fall of 2024, I think if they haven't done something already, they're likely to put it on hiatus until maybe after that election. But I really think the goal will be to get something done well before then, probably in 2023. Even though you have an indictment, though, potentially, and you're trying to move towards trial, you can have pretrial proceedings that slow things down, motions to suppress, or sometimes challenging other aspects of the evidence that might be presented. And you got major discovery that would have to take place. Regular criminal cases take a while to move forward just on sort of a typical standard basis. This is the type of case that I think might take even more time to get through discovery and other aspects of pretrial proceedings.
Yeah, and we note by comparison some of the low-level January 6 cases, the misdemeanor cases, are still pending. 2 years later, not even trial dates set, so this would be, as a potential higher-level case, even more elaborate and complicated. Let me ask you a different question on a different matter. You're drinking from this fire hose now. You've been elected to Congress, and you have to study up like the world's hardest final exam and get ready for January 3rd. Is there anything you'd like to see the lame duck Congress take care of or clear away so that the next Congress gets a fresh start?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of heavy lifts coming up. The debt ceiling issue is, I think, one of the front and center issues. But, given the spate of mass shootings in the last few days, there might be some logic to trying to address that, too. What your previous story mentioned, the assault weapons ban is something that has been raised. I think it's been passed out of the House already. The issue would be whether the Senate's going to be willing to move forward with it or not. But that legislation, even if it gets voted down, it might make sense to have it on the record so people know who's been in favor of it and who isn't. And I do think in the next Congress, we're going to have to try and do much more to try and come up with comprehensive gun reform, not only to address the mass shootings, but also some of the crime in our streets and many of the communities across the country.
Two other big things coming down the pike. The potential for a government shutdown December 16th. You have any number of federal workers. I suspect you want that averted. But also the debt ceiling is coming potentially in 2023 in the new Congress in which you'll serve. Would you want the Democratic majority to clear that away before January?
Yeah, if they can. I mean, I think that, we don't want to play chicken with the economy. We don't want to play with the full faith and credit of the United States government. It has devastating impacts on people's lives, as we've seen in, previous stunts that have been put in place by the Republican Party and previous Congresses. So hopefully we can avert that, take care of these issues early, so we don't put another scare in Wall Street, especially while we're we're struggling with inflation and other challenges here in the economy and trying to get that reduced again. We don't need another big shockwave. So I'm hoping we could resolve that relatively quickly.
New member of the new Congress, Glenn Ivey in Maryland. We'll see you here in D.C., just across the city limits in a few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you. When we come back, despite the election results, Arizona still seems to be a hotbed of election denialism. We'll explain why. You're streaming Red and Blue.
Everybody wakes up in the morning and they are pelted with alerts that frighten them, news that agitates them. With this show, we have the time to explain what's going on. These migrants, they've been released. Explain the status that allows them to be released, to slow things down a little bit. What are the big sets of questions for China and its ambitions? Hackers are stepping up their attacks to extort victims. Let's start with easy. Who's attacking? Here's a deeper understanding of what's happening.
Prime Time with John Dickerson. Stream on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS reports tensions rising between a powerful country and a vital island.
The supply of this technology came grinding to a halt. The world would grind to a halt.
Absolutely. As Taiwan faces threats and aggression,
Taiwan is on the front line, and we understand our responsibility as a democracy. We cannot fall.
CBS News examines whether they can defend themselves.
Putin, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, they are manifestations of the battle between autocracy and democracy. And that is a fight that we're all engaged in.
Defending Taiwan, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When weather turns extreme,
States from the plains to the northeast are bracing for more than 2 feet of heavy snow.
Every second counts.
This is a monster winter storm.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
There's a wrinkle in the forecast, the accumulating ice.
You'll have time to get prepared.
Take precautions before you head out.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
When it comes to the money you spend every day, we have you covered every morning. Making money makes sense. Weekdays on CBS Mornings.
After decades in the public eye and public service, this mother-daughter duo is now talking about gutsy women. What's the gutsiest thing you've ever done? We go person to person with Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton and Chelsea Clinton.
Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
I've been waiting patiently for something like this.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream on the free CBS News app Tuesday mornings.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Scott McFarland. The defeated Republican candidate for governor in Arizona is refusing to concede. Kari Lake called the election, quote, a debacle in a video posted to Twitter this week. The defeated candidate said last week she's assembling lawyers as she considers her next move. Lake, who spread false claims about the 2020 election, lost the tight race to Democrat and Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs on November 8th. For more on this, Jim Small joins us now. He's the editor-in-chief of the Arizona Mirror in Arizona, where Election Day just doesn't seem to end. We've heard the latest accusations from Kari Lake. Where is this headed, Jim? Is it headed anywhere that's galvanizing people behind her?
I think it still remains to be seen. Right now, what the Lake campaign is doing is talking about, kind of saber rattling a little bit about litigation, and they are using social media to really put out stories of Arizonans that they said were facing challenges on Election Day, right? That folks who either had their ballots couldn't be read by the on-site tabulators, or people who were faced with really long lines, and some of whom were unable to wait in line and ended up having to go to work or go take care of their kids or go do whatever and weren't able to vote. But in a lot of cases, the stories end, if you watch them to the end, the stories conclude with, well, I was able to vote. And I was able to cast my ballot, and as far as I know, my ballot was counted. So we really don't know yet. I would expect that there's going to be some litigation, but we also did see a top advisor for Kari Lake going on Twitter just the other day, essentially asking her followers to go after the RNC and hammer the RNC to get them to open up their wallets to pay for the lawsuit, which tells me that there might be some challenges in terms of finding funding for litigation and maybe even finding the attorneys who are willing to take such a case.
It's not just Kari Lake, though. It's this whole slate of election-denying candidates that were there in Arizona. It was Blake Masters running for the U.S. Senate. It was Mark Fincham running for Secretary of State to be the administrator of elections in Arizona. Are there deadlines they're all coming up on? Because all three of them have, made a pillar of their candidacies denialism of previous elections and calls for investigations and lawsuits from previous elections. What soft or hard deadline are they approaching?
Yeah, so on Monday, the 28th, all of the counties, all 15 counties in Arizona have to have certified canvass their elections. Most of them have done so. I think there's 4 or 5 that are outstanding that are all planning to do it on Monday. And then after that, I think on December 5th is the next deadline. That is when the state canvass will happen, when Katie Hobbs, now governor-elect, but the Secretary of State, and Governor Doug Ducey and Attorney General Mark Brnovich will all gather. We'll take all of those county canvasses and we'll certify the final election. And so that's typically in Arizona law when the clock starts for being able to challenge the election results is once that canvass happens in the immediate, I think it's like 5 days after that canvass.
Let's talk about the Attorney General race as well. There was a tweet from the Republican contender for Arizona Attorney General, Abe Hamadeh, that said Arizonans demand answers and deserve transparency about the gross incompetence and mismanagement of the general election by certain election officials. I will not stop fighting until all voters receive justice. See you in court. Then there's the response from the Democratic candidate for Attorney General, Chris Mays. And it's pretty poignant as well, saying Abe Hamadeh's complaint is devoid of actual facts. It does not plausibly allege mistakes in the administration of the election actually occurred, and if they did occur, that they would have made any difference in the result. We'll be filing a motion to dismiss this complaint. So that's going on as well. I'm wondering, where are the challenges, if there are going to be challenges? Is everything in Maricopa County, that epicenter of previous disputes, that massive county in Arizona, or could it be elsewhere too?
Fundamentally, it's going to be in Maricopa County, and for a couple of reasons. One is that 60 to 65% of voters are in Maricopa County in the Phoenix area. The second is that this year, as I think everyone's well aware of, Maricopa County really had some problems in their election day voting. The printers that print the ballots off for a voter when they show up to vote, and about 30% of the polling places were having problems, and those problems led to those ballots not being able to be counted on site. And instead, they had to be stored in secure storage and sent down to the county headquarters, where much larger ballot tabulators were able to read them all. And those really are the cornerstone and kind of the crux of a lot of the complaints. They certainly are in Abe Hamadeh's lawsuit. They have been for Carrie Lake. That's been a focus of her thing, her agitation. And I think Blake Masters is really the only one of those candidates who hasn't come out and really railed against the election and argued that, essentially that they got cheated out of the election because of the problems in Maricopa County. And I think that that's likely because he lost by as much as he did. His race was one of the earlier ones decided.
Oh, in Phoenix for Thanksgiving.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
What's the temperature going to be tomorrow for the holiday?
Oh, man, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be about 70, 72 degrees.
Nice. Turkey outside. Jim Small, thank you for joining us from Phoenix. And that does it for today. You can stream Red and Blue Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And a reminder, if you want to watch previous episodes of the program, see them anytime on the CBS News website. Just head to cbsnews.com/redandblue.